in Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, at the time, a seminal study by two Fulbright scholars, Drs. Mossman and Dassmann from Humboldt University in California, discovered in a study on the Henderson Ranch that wildlife conservation practices, properly managed wildlife, was worth more on the ground in terms of its profitability to the owner of the farm than domestic livestock. And so the narrative or the philosophy of game ranching came into being as a result of that paper, which was widely distributed. It filtered down into southern Africa, and in Zululand it found its genesis in a private ranch set up by Ian Scott Barnes in the Ntambanana district of Zululand. He set aside 1,000 acres and we stocked it free of charge with wildlife.
With the game capture, and we caught thousands and thousands of animals, we developed new systems which are used to this day. We had a good hand on the management.
Needless to say, someone eventually said to us, look, you can't dispose of public assets simply by offering them to people free of charge. You need to put a fee on them. So we charged R2 per impala, caught, tied up their legs with silk stockings, which was donated by various women's institutions and women's institutes around the world, so much so that we had literally rooms full of silk stockings which served the purpose of securing the animals while they were transported from Mkuzi Game Reserve onto the farms. Well, again, I need to say whether those animals ended up as biltong or whether they ended up as being released, which was our objective, onto farms is another thing, but it's academic. The fact is that that was the earliest day, those were the earliest days in which the concept of ranching game for economic purposes took root in Zululand. It was happening, of course, all over South Africa at the same time, but not to the same extent, because the Natal Parks Board had a capture operation going, which probably grew in fame in the 60s to the extent that we were regarded as the world's leader in the capture of wild herbivores in Africa. That created the demand that later grew and which allowed game ranchers to have an assured source of supply for wildlife as a result of the Mossman and Dassmann concept being put into place on certain farms in Zululand which were marginal and which were unsuitable for domestic livestock. And so that covers some of the background to how sustainable utilization came into being in this part of the world.